So to my far left, we have Bill Swan. And Bill will celebrate his 25th anniversary with Swagelok in February 2016. He has been the lead on the job training coordinator for Swagelok High Purity Group manufacturing site since 2010. Previously, he held Swagelok positions which include production supervisor, lead person, setup person, and advanced machine operator. Bill serves as the project leader for several high workforce development initiatives, including Swagelok's internship programs. And then outside of Swagelok, he serves on the advisory board. He serves on the advisory board as a member for the Auburn Career Center's Advanced Manufacturing Program. He is a scuba instructor and a counselor at CSB Youth Camp, a youth advisor for Lake County, the local Lake County Youth Group, and he previously held positions as vice president and board member of Geauga County Local School District. And that's Bill. And next to Bill is Kenton Woodhead. Kenton has been employed by Royals Plastics as a manager of purchasing, lean, and continuous improvement for the past 5 years. He is responsible for overall supply chain, all lean, continuous improvement, root cause analysis, and major corporate projects. Previously, he was the purchasing manager of a consumer goods manufacturer, and he has achieved the Certified Professional Supply Management and Certified Professional Supplier Diversity certifications from the Institute for Supply Management. And he holds his Bachelor's of Science in Management from Indiana Wesleyan University. He is currently working on his project management professional certification through the Project Management Institute, and Kenton is a native Pennsylvanian. He's made his way to Ohio, right? And then we have Reggie Stover. Reggie's joined Fairmount Santrol in June of 2011 as the Vice President of People and Talent Management. As a member of the senior management team, he oversees the areas of human resources for talent acquisition, talent and leadership development, employee relations and engagement, people process improvement, change management, and sustainable development. Previously, Reggie was with Cleveland Clinic as the Chief Talent Officer, and prior to joining Cleveland Clinic in 2008, he held several human resource leadership roles at Pepsi America's Nestle Prepared Foods Division, GE Lighting Division, ITW Hi-Cone, and Sprint Business. Additionally, he has been an active duty captain in the U.S. Army. Reggie was inducted into the Villa Angela St. Joseph High School Hall of Fame in 2010 and is a recipient of the African American Male Image Award, Cleveland 4040 Club inductee, and Who's Who in Black Cleveland. And I just learned recently, congratulations to Reggie, he was recently nominated as a finalist for Crane's 2015 Archer Award for the Human Resource Executive of the Year. He serves on the board of Villa Angela St. Joseph High School, St. Agnes Our Lady of Fatima, Cuyahoga Valley National Park, and recently joined the board of Achievement Centers for Children. Reggie has a BA in Communications from the University of Cincinnati, a MS in Organizational Development from Case Western Reserve Woodhead School of Management, and he is a native Clevelander, married, and the proud father of 3 children. So these are our panelists, and as you can see, they're well-credentialed, wealth of background and experience, have been able to add a lot of value to their organizations over time, and I want you to hear what they have to share because I feel that you will find that they have much to contribute in this discussion this morning. So what we will do, we'll start with Bill. And I'll ask Bill if he would just summarize his 2 approaches that Swagelok has used to address the challenge of finding workers to fill the current vacancies. Your particular program, you're actually bringing in individuals through a specialized program. Why don't you tell us more about it, Bill?
So, there's definitely a challenge out there recruiting the right talent for our industry. Significant precision metalworking takes place in our environment, and there just isn't, that isn't taught in schools anymore. So it's hard to find an individual that possesses the, I guess, the fundamental skills that can learn and retain that type of, technical information that would require them to be successful in that environment. So the conventional ways of attracting that talent weren't working for us successfully. I guess it was successful, but sporadic. It was kind of hit or miss. But we did learn through that process what we were looking for by assessing the talent that was successful. So we had to come up with a program that used those techniques and use them consistently to attract talent. So we put a program together to do that, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with you when the time comes.
So the next slide.
So are we on my slides now? So we're rolling right into it? Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't understand how it works, so
No,
very
you
good.
just tell me when to
Okay,
transition.
so is this not for me then?
Yeah, if you can use that, if you want to. Go for
Hopefully I
it.
can use this. So anyway, I guess good morning. Thanks for the invite to talk to you about the program. We're pretty excited at Swagelok about it's about just a little over 2 years of full implementation. So let me tell you a little bit about, I guess, where we were just a few short years ago in acquiring talent. So what we do, probably like many of you, is use local staffing agencies to recruit for our staffing needs. What they would do is do a first line interview, background checks, screening, and then from that point, successful candidates would move to one of our recruiting events at our local sites. And then they would receive another interview by a Swagelok supervisor, and if they possessed any technical skills or previous machining skills, they might have another interview with an on-the-job training coordinator or subject matter expert to kind of assess their skill level. From that point, they would be matched up with some of our current needs in one of our sites. Upon successful completion of that process, then they would enter one of our onboarding programs in our what we call Machining 101 program. It's a curriculum that's held in a classroom prior to going out onto the floor and running the machine. Upon successful completion of that, they would come onto the floor as a temporary associate from anywhere from approximately 6 to 11 months, learning the skills, demonstrating proficiency in those skills, retention of those skills, demonstrating that they can function successfully in our culture, and they would be offered a full-time employment position somewhere within that time, 6 to 11 months, depending on how quickly they acclimate to that environment. Again, as I said a few minutes ago, we had a varied level of success for that. Much greater success in our less complex areas. In our more complex machine areas, it was a little sporadic. Like I said, a lot of times when you found somebody, it was kind of like a diamond in a rough. There wasn't really any real science behind finding someone. We just happened to find good people out there that were looking for a job. It's a little bit about our history. So what do we do from that point? So we put together a collaborative effort between Magnet and Tri-C, and we began to develop what we call the Swagelok Right Skills Now program. It is an established national program, but we needed to customize it a little bit to fit what we were looking for. So we started with a set of candidate requirements that addressed some of the shortfalls we were seeing in that traditional model. Our partners through the program were vital for the success for this. Tri-C has worked with us for many years, helping us put together training programs for our intermediate to more advanced skilled machinists. So they knew us well, they knew our culture, they knew what we were looking for in our equipment. So they helped build that through their instructional design team, a curriculum that was vitally needed as we were bringing in, looking for the right skill sets to bring these folks in. Some of the prerequisites, if you will, to enter the Swagelok Right Skills Now program, where they had to have a high school diploma or equivalency GED. They had to complete a skill validation tool, which is called WorkKeys. I don't know if it's familiar in this room, but in WorkKeys, we identified 3 sets of this program that were also going to be vital for somebody to be successful as a precision metal worker at Swagelok. They had to achieve a minimum of a silver level 4 in applied math, locating information, and reading for information. They had to have the ability to get to class and maintain perfect attendance. They kind of set the stage for whether or not they were going to be able to work in our environment. They had to have, again, we had to run a background check. This time Swagelok will run the background check. Now all of these things are happening prior to being accepted into the program. So this at no point is just getting into the doors and Swagelok recruiting event. Now this is just to get into the program. And then finally they had to pay the tuition of the program. So they had to be invested in themselves prior to getting a chance to work at Swagelok. I think the program runs somewhere around $4,500, if I'm correct, somewhere around there. So once in the program, they'll enter a 530-hour training track. The curriculum, again, that they're using in this program is specific to Swagelok. So they're learning things that typically our on-the-job trainers would have to do once we've already brought them into the building. So now these subject matter experts are able to be more productive in the shop because we've moved this training into the classroom side of the Right Skills Now program. We offer both day and evening opportunities for this program. And at the end of 8 weeks, they're offered, based upon, again, subject to successful completion of the program, they are offered full-time employment. They are not sitting on the floor demonstrating proficiency for 6 to 11 months. So they also have the opportunity to test for NIMS credentials at the end of 8 weeks. So that's another certification they'll receive through this program. This kind of is just a visual of what I just described. As you can see, those first 4 steps again happen before they can even enter the program. Another nice aspect of this program is that Tri-C and Magnet do the recruiting efforts for us. So through their websites, their social media efforts, they also have community events where they invite the community into a Tri-C session or event, and they talk about the variety of programs, how they get funded for the program. They'll sometimes invite someone from Swagelok to talk about our culture during this event so the community can learn a little bit about us before they enter the program. Then again, they have to complete the work keys. As you can see, there is a Swagelok interview prior to going to the program. Again, we want to just kind of get to know the individual and make sure that they're making a good decision and we're making a good decision before they enter the program. And then again, the background check. It's a fast process. They're again going to be offered a job at the end of 8 weeks, so we want to make sure that all of this is done up front. After those 4 steps are taking place, they'll enter Tri-C for that fast track curriculum. They'll begin an internship at Swagelok, 8 weeks. They'll receive feedback from their supervisor on how well they're doing, both positive reinforcement that they're doing well, as well as any opportunities they have to develop to make sure that they're meeting the requirements to be successful. And then again, at the end of 8 weeks, they receive an offer for a position. Typically, I would say that 99% of the times where the associates are interning is where they're offered a position. So it isn't changed up on their learning in the environment that they're going to become a full-time employee. So some of the outcomes. So what we found in roughly 1.5 years of experience with the program, this ongoing collaborative effort between Swagelok and Tri-C allows us to respond to the changing working environment quickly, because we can monitor the success of certain aspects of the program and then meet with Tri-C right away and make any adjustments necessary. Let's say that there's a gap or they're struggling with something through the Machine 101 or 201 process. We can enhance that opportunity into the classroom before they get there and make those adjustments to help the successfulness of the candidate as they hit the floor. We have the ability now, we have a stronger, due to the assessments and the training that they're receiving in a classroom, we can now place these candidates into our most complex work areas successfully. In fact, I learned just prior to this that several of the candidates that we hired in 2014 are already receiving promotions to the next level in 2015, which is a nice metric to see after shortly implementing this program. Again, the data we're seeing 2015 over 2014, even the program itself is improving. Right now we're recognizing about a 10% improvement in both quality of the material and quality of the candidate coming out of the program. So it's been working very well for us. So, for listening to me, and I'll tell you about this program.
So as you can see, they have really capitalized on the early part of the process where they clearly defined the individuals that will be most ready for the particular jobs that they had available, and they set up a process in which to not only identify and source them appropriately, but to assess them and determine whether or not there's the appropriate cultural fit. Attracting the right talent to the organization at the beginning really makes a big difference in the outcomes that the organization realizes, and realizes a lot sooner than if they hadn't put that thought and work into the development of their program. And as you can see, this is an opportunity more broadly when you can't, you don't necessarily have the internal resources to build an initiative like this, that you can reach out to the community and your agencies and partners to actually pull together a program that would really have a specific and quick impact on the organization and bottom line. Next, we'll just turn it over to Kenton, and he will share with us what they're doing around incomer workers development. That is another key aspect of talent retention, and they have been working with Magnet around some of their lean initiatives. So he'll share a little bit more of those, that work that has been done in their organization. Kenton?
Thank you, Donna. Give you just a couple of seconds of background here before I get into the meat and potatoes. I got into Royal about 5 years ago. I do three things for Royal. I manage our supply chain, our whole continuous improvement endeavors, and the kind of strategic larger projects that the owners don't want to do themselves. I work for 4 owners. They're all crazy. Term of endearment. And they're been very supportive about what we've done in the last 3 years anyhow. So when I first arrived there, one of the things I had to do was get our hands wrapped around our supply chain and material flow, inventory control, yada, yada, yada. And I was surrounded by nightmares. It was every alien movie that you've ever seen times 10. And when this is over, I could probably spend a couple hours out in the hallway entertaining you with some of the horrific stories. So it took a long time many months of hard work. We worked really hard to get that squared away and get processes in place, so on and such forth. And while all that's going on, and my focus is primarily on inventory control, material flow, all things related to purchasing, I'm looking around me and I'm looking over in production, and I'm looking out at shipping and receiving, and I'm looking at quality, and I'm noticing there's what we call it today, one of those 30,000-foot words, there's a lot of opportunity. And I was seeing it. So I started beating the drum for, we should start some sort of a lean program, something I was familiar with prior to coming in there, get something going. So I spent months and months and months with the 4 owners that I mentioned earlier, perhaps you're a little crazy, beating the drum about starting a lean program. And of course, they thought that the word lean was a 4-syllable French word, and words like Kaizen event were something they sprinkled on their salad. They weren't hearing me at all. I was getting 1,000-yard stares. So I want to take a step sideways here for a second and tell you that in my first year or so there, we're a very safety-conscious company, and we're a safety-conscious company because we put a program together with Magnet several years prior to my arrival that has been wildly successful. I can't say enough. Again, I could spend a couple hours beating the drum on our safety program. Magnet did come in and did an excellent job with this, and there was a guy named Mike Kaminsky who kind of, brought this whole thing to fruition. So I keep hearing this name, Mike Kaminsky, thrown about, for a year or so with Magnet, and I'm wondering, who is this guy? Because every time I hear a story about him, it's with reverence, like, Mike Kaminsky. This is manufacturing. People should not be regarded that highly. Who is this guy? But I was born at night, but it wasn't last night. So after a little while, I thought, I'm going to reach out to Kaminsky here and find out what he can do to help me get this lean thing going. Because he's the type of guy, when he walks into our building, whatever he says, they pretty much do. I'm no dummy. So he and I got tied up, and we started down the lean path. The short version is we brought Mike in, and the 4 owners are sitting there, and they're doing the bobbin head dog man thing. And everything Mike said, I think he said in 2 hours, he said 3 words. He said lean, he said Kaizen, and he said 5S. And all of a sudden, it was new to them, it was a great idea, let's go down this path. So that's what we started. So we're 3 years later down this lean journey that we've started, and it's been very successful, thanks to Magnet's assistance. We've also engaged Magnet in several other things that we wanted to do since I've been there. You know, one is onboarding and training. She asked earlier about an onboarding and training. We had a horrific onboarding and training process that was pretty much like, go spend a day with Bob, and he'll teach you everything you know. And then we wondered why people were frustrated and leaving after a couple of days or a couple of weeks. We've all been there, right? So now it's more formalized. With Magnet's help, we have a process in place, and off we go. We also do a newer thing, root cause analysis. We're heavy on that path. And we've also talked to them about some secondary operations. And I've had Kaminsky involved in this the whole time because these are things that I thought were important to us, and every time you bring Kaminsky in with it, it works, and we can get it kicked off. So that's the background of you know, where we were kind of 3 years ago, coming up to now with our continuous improvement efforts and with engaging our employees. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to throw some numbers at you that I think that will drive home the point here. You know, we have the 4 owners that I mentioned earlier, and since day one in this, they have been involved, they've been supportive, and everybody knows it. We got a couple hundred people in the company, and everybody knows that this is the direction we've chosen to go, and we're heading there. So if you have that kind of support, if you know anything about lean, you got to have the support from the top. If not, you're wasting your time. Magnet has a guy named Guido. If you've never met Guido, I recommend you get to meet Guido. Guido and I took 220 employees through 3 years through our lean training and got those folks initially acclimated to where we were headed with this. In the 3 years since, I've involved about 100, 120 of those folks in actual lean events and other continuous improvement events that we pulled off. I'm now to the point now where I have 35 regular participants, and they're kind of somewhat militant now in that that's what they want to do. When we have an event coming up, they want to be involved in it, and they'll do anything to get on that team. And that's been a pretty fun ride watching those folks develop over the last few years. I've also have 12, roughly speaking, specialists. What I call specialists, those are folks who have a certain skill level or passion for something that is helpful to us in our lean and continuous improvement endeavors. You know, I have one guy, I'll cite him as an example. Anybody ever did any lean work, you know you paint a lot of lines on the floor. And I have one guy who was so OCD that every line's got to be absolutely straight. And it's a wonderful thing to have him on the event. I have a couple other people who very much enjoy painting, which I want to flee the room when we start to paint. And I have a couple other people who are micro cleaners. They absolutely love to clean with their little brushes there. God bless them. I'm glad I have them. It's been a wonderful thing having these folks involved. I only have 2 eye rollers. If you heard anything about lean, you hear stories about people not wanting to support it. I call them eye rollers. It's a good, nice neutral term. They're over in the plant across the street. They're 3rd shift guys. I can see it every time we're talking about something. They look at each other and go like this. But other than that, really, we didn't run into any resistance when we did this. We got people involved on day one. We've kept them involved ever since. They get it. They see it. They see what we're doing. They see how it makes their jobs easier. So we don't have a lot of resistance, thank God. I've read all the stories and all the books about all the problems you have. And, I have these 2 guys. I'm good with it. They keep their mouths shut. They don't interfere. Everything's good. At the same time, the number's about 15, could be a couple plus or minuses, what I call aisle stoppers. And here's a scenario. I'll be going through one of the plants. I got presses on the left, presses on the right, and I need to get back there to get something done. And I have people stopping me along the way who want to tell me something about some new idea that they have, some efficiency or what have you, and I can't go past them. I got to stop and talk to them. The day I quit, I lose it. So there's about 15. And a lot of times we can't do a lot of things that they're suggesting or recommending because there's some upstream or downstream interference with that. But the fact that they're keeping an eye on things like that, coming up with ideas is awesome. So. And then, how many of you have truculent, argumentative, miserable customers who aggravate you and do anything? Show of hands. Am I the only one? One of the really cool things about where we've gone with this, and by the way, I go out and this touches on both of these. Every few months I go out and spend $1,500 and buy everybody in the company a t-shirt with some continuous improvement message on the shirt. So our employees wear these things on a regular basis, they can see them. And we've had, not as a solely based on our lean and continuous improvement efforts the last couple of years, we've gained 6 new customers, in part because of what we're doing. They see it, they see our employees with the shirt. We try and time events when we know we have a new customer coming in so they can see us actively doing this kind of stuff. And we've taken some of those customers who have been challenges and we've turned those relationships around to good, positive relationships because they see what we're doing, they see that we're trying to improve things, trying to do things better, and we're involving our team in this. And it's been a pretty cool ride. So one of the things I hear from the employees on a regular basis, and I wanted to share a couple of things as a result of the efforts that we've done. These aren't my words. This is feedback I hear from the employees because I'm out on the plant floor on a regular basis, and everybody kind of knows me and knows what I'm about, so they share this kind of information. And the employees tell me that they enjoy our lean journey because they volunteer to do something different. They're not just pulling levers and pressing buttons and that stuff. They get to do something different, and they're able to volunteer to do it and become involved in part of a team that we put together for a week or 4 days, what have you. And they very much enjoy that. The other thing that is very clear with us is they don't come to work worrying about their jobs every day. They see what we're doing. They know it's making us a better company. They know it's making us more profitable. And they're glad to be a part of that, so they don't come in worrying about their jobs on a daily basis. They keep looking right at you. I apologize for that. Also with lean, at the end of the day, it's about making their jobs easier. We're not trying to complicate anything. We're trying to clean it up and make it better for everybody. So why would you want to resist being involved? So the onboarding and training I touched on a little bit ago, we're now putting people out on the floor who are actually prepared for success as opposed to waiting for bombs to go off on them, and that's been a huge help also. And it's really benefiting us. The root cause, it's a newer venture that we're going down, taking small groups, 7 or 8 people at a time through a training class, and we're putting live events together for them to determine root causes of problems. I don't know about you guys, but we have our share of problems. So we can work through those, and it's not just management monkeys telling them what the problems are. They're actually part of the solution and coming up with the ideas to solve it. It's been awesome. So we have some passive folks out of the couple hundred that we have who I wouldn't call, they're not overt supporters of what we do, but they get it, they understand it. And then we have a big chunk of those folks that are fully engaged with us and helping us do a lot of things. So finishing up here, the other side of this coin is the benefits to our company. And I thought a lot about this because there's got to be a return. We've done a number of events with Magnet, and we have spent tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars over the years with Magnet doing these things. We're proud of the results. One of the owners and I have burned up a couple of calculators in the last couple of years, putting numbers to the return on this, and I can tell you that we have blown past the return on these endeavors a long time ago, and it's we're in icing and gravy land right now. We're a much more efficient company. We can see that, our customers can see that, our employees can see that. Our retention is better because we have more people involved. They're not just automatons sitting out there pressing buttons and pulling levers. They're actually involved in helping make us a better company. I should have mentioned this earlier, but we have about 15 people that, as a result of interacting in our lean efforts, we see them as aggressive problem solvers who want to be a part of the solution, and we've positioned them for promotions within our organization. That's awesome. How often do you of success in the last couple, 3 years finding those types of people, primarily through our continuous improvement endeavors. The retained customers and new customers I talked about, it's been awesome. They see it, they get it, they understand it. A lot of them are doing it themselves, and that's been a big part of it. You know, we're not a government organization, we're a privately held company, and we're there to make money. Our customers understand it, we know it, our employees understand it, and by doing these kind of things, we're making more money than we ever had. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Kenton. So as you can see, investing in your people and finding creative ways for them to learn new skills and contribute to the organization definitely has a payoff. One of the things that I'm sure came out of this whole process that Kenton probably didn't say explicitly is that there are some new skills gained, some abilities to improve their problem solving and critical thinking skills. Those all are contributory factors in the success of the employees within the organization and the bottom line impact that they have as well. So you can see why employee development is such a critical component of your talent management strategy, because it has a direct linkage to not only the value that you're bringing to your workforce, but the bottom line impact on the organization, like as he mentioned, efficiencies in the work that they were doing, new innovative ideas on ways to improve their processes, and the acquisition and retention of customers, all business impacts. So now I'm going to ask Reggie if he will share with all of you what they're doing at Fairmount Santrol around retention. And this is a pretty broad area, but it's very important because these are the individuals that you want to keep. You want to be able to keep your best and brightest within the organization. And there are a number of ways in which you can approach this aspect of your talent management strategy. So with that, I'll let Reggie speak to you.
Okay, thank you, Don, and good morning again, and thank you for inviting me. First of all, I want to, a lot of people always first say, who is Fairmount Santrol, and what do they do? Well, formerly we were Fairmount Minerals, and effective October 3rd, 2014, we became Fairmount Santrol. When I joined the company, we were about a 500-person, $700 million organization, and now we're about 1.5 billion, and we're private. Now we're public, 1.5 million, about 1,200 employees, and a lot of that was due through not only going out and doing some of the things that Bill and Kenton talked about, initiating processes, attracting employees, but you also got to try to keep and retain those employees. That's where I'm going to spend the bulk of my time here with you. I want to say that Fairmount Santrol in general is a very empowering, very entrepreneurial, highly collaborative organization. Those three things, in my opinion, actually help with retention. When you empower employees, you're entrepreneurial, employees at all levels of the organization can come in and offer ideas that are listened to and, in some instances, implemented into the business to help us be better. So when you are empowered, and when you're entrepreneurial, and when you're highly collaborative, those kind of things help you retain talent. The company itself, we make and manufacture silica sand. I don't know, most of you probably watched the Flintstones at some point, and you see Fred on this thing, this dinosaur, which for us it's a huge crane and it's crushing rocks. That's what we do. We're in a quarry, we dig, and we take big rocks, turn them into little rocks, and eventually make sand. We do a little more than that because we also put a plastic coating on the sand, and actually we sell that to companies like Calibration and Schlumberger, which actually drill for oil. Some people know it as fracking. We don't frack. We sell the product to the companies that do frack. But at the end of the day, we're an oil and gas company because we provide product that helps those companies get out oil and gas from the ground. A little grain of sand is just enough to put a crack in the earth for oil to seep out, believe it or not. Just a small grain of sand can do that. So that's who we are. I always like to start fundamentally with a definition. Although I'm talking about retention, this whole thing is all about talent management, and it's actually a tug of war, and a war for talent, as most of you know, by my caption there. But in general, talent management, the way we've defined it, is the strategic recruitment, development, and retention of individuals with the right skills, experiences, and personal qualities, which are a cultural fit with an organization to help that organization achieve its long-term goals. That's how we define it. The key words are cultural fit, the strategic recruitment. Everybody may not be a good fit for Fairmount Santrol, and there's processes that we have to go through. Bill's kind of walking through his process, and obviously Kenton was too. Every person is not a fit for the company, but you want to have a definition of what it is, so you'll know what to look for, or you know how to go about it. So, since I've been the HR leader there, I always start everything out with a fundamental description or definition for the team, the leadership team, to get around. Because if we're misaligned, we're probably going to be misaligned bringing the individuals in the door. So, having now an understanding of talent management, let's talk a little bit about employee engagement. Because employee engagement is then what leads to employee retention. So, employee engagement is a measure reflecting the extent to which an employee contributes their efforts and enthusiasm to the success and performance of the organization. It's that additional effort that employee will give beyond what is actually required. That's what we call an engaged employee. Now, before we start talking about retention, what are the top 5 drivers of employee engagement? So recognition and appreciation, that's certainly one, and that leads to retention. Personal accomplishments is one, which leads to retention. Then there's the belief in the future of the organization, which drives retention. Obviously, compensation is a big one that drives retention. But more importantly, it's really all about career development. That really drives retention. When an employee knows that they have career opportunities within an organization, and they know how their job fits within the organization and how it is important to the overall accomplishment of the mission, you're going to have an engaged employee. And you do that through offering them developmental opportunities. At the end of the day, all employees want to know these things. They want to know, can I trust you? Are you committed? And do you care about me? If you can answer yes for that employee to all 3, you'll have a retained employee. So your suite of building on talent management, employee engagement, and what is truly important to the employee to actually retain them. So a big way of retaining the employee is you absolutely have to have leadership involved. A big way to get leadership involved is to have the leadership mirror or set the example for what they want the employees to be or what they want the employees to do. So first and foremost, the role of leadership is to model the expected qualities and behaviors which are necessary to build an effective, sustainable culture of talent management. That's first and foremost. Secondly, leadership should share the philosophies of what it takes to be an effective leader and what it takes to build a strong talent pool. So I'm ex-military. A soldier will not follow me if I'm not willing to do it, right? Same thing for an employee, right? If I'm not willing to pick up my rifle, dig that foxhole, go out, unfortunately, shoot, kill the enemy, then my soldiers are not going to want to do that either. Same thing with employees. You got to model the way, you need to set the expectations for what it is you want the employees to do. They will get behind that. They will get behind a leader who does that. And then lastly, the leaders should have a plan for aligning the people, programs, and systems and structures and strategies to create a competitive advantage for your organization, right? You have to have a plan, but at the end of the day, your employees help you create that competitive advantage. Again, if you're able to do that, you will retain employees. Lastly, a little slogan we put here, employees will be what they see. If you're modeling the way, they can get behind it. Okay? So, what is the process? I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. But this is our process for talent management and retention of employees. First of all, if you hire the right employees, most often you have no problems. That is a challenge, making sure you hire right first, okay? So get the right people with the right skills for the right job. That's about identifying and attracting. Then, selection and hiring. That's about engaging employees right from the start. You do that through an onboarding process, through a smooth transition from candidate to employee. And just as important as the employee experience is the candidate experience. That employee that you may not hire could be a customer for you, or could be someone who's purchasing your goods and services. So you want to make sure, even if you don't hire that person, you give a great candidate experience. Then the development piece, that's the investment in our employees, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about that here in a second. And then anytime you make an investment, you want to leverage that investment. So then now, how do you get the return from that employee? Most often that's through their production, or in most cases you promote them. You promote them to a position of higher responsibility. And then to complete the life cycle, you protect that investment also by smooth transition to retire. And that's equally important as hiring the person. It's how you retire or exit that employee from the company. So what are we doing? So real quickly, we have a very formalized onboarding process. We have an orientation process and an onboarding process. Some people tend to get those confused. Orientation and onboarding is not the same thing. Make sure you clearly can differentiate that for your employees. An orientation process, that may take 1 to 2 hours for us. That's familiarizing the employee with some of the general benefits, who they report to, where they're going to be, a little bit more information about the company's philosophy. That's orientation. Onboarding can take up to 6 months or a year. You have to have a process to onboard. That's really familiarizing a person with what their job duties and responsibilities are. That's really familiarizing a person with how you make money, how the company is profitable, what's the mission, vision, and values of the organization. Really, what are the brass tacks of your job and what you do? That's onboarding. So orientation and onboarding is tremendously different, and you really have to define that for your employees. Then schedule meet and greets with key leaders. There's nothing, in my opinion, worse than hiring a new employee and not making sure they know who the people are in the organization that they really need to know. The people who actually are going to help them be successful. The people who are going to help them develop. The people who are going to help them get promoted. The people who are going to help them do their job more effectively. So we have a very formal onboarding process where these meet and greets, they're non-negotiable. You want to sit down, if you have the opportunity, with the CFO. Who would not want to do that? You want to sit down with your key salespeople. Who would not want to do that? You definitely want to sit down with your key HR people and better understand your benefits that you may not have understood in the orientation process. So now you have the opportunity to get more information. This doesn't cost money, it's just a little bit more time. So sit down and have those meet and greets. Then requesting managers to conduct a 30, 45, and 60-day follow-up. This does not happen only with our hourly folks. The executives, the VPs, EVPs, they get a 30, 45, 60-day review. Because we want to know, are we meeting your expectations? And we want to let you know if you're meeting our expectations. So you need to do that. We have found that employees, they want to know where they stand. Good or bad, they want to know where they stand. So it's very important to do that 30, 45-day, 60-day process. And that's non-negotiable. You should want to give your employees that feedback. Okay, you don't want to get to the end of the year and find out, Reggie, we made a bad hire here. Shouldn't happen. In the area of development, employee development plans, people are nervous about this term called performance review. So we call it development dialogues, because dialogue is all about the conversation. And if you're having a conversation, the employee feels less intimidated. I'm going for my performance review. No, we're just gonna sit down, we're gonna have dialogue, we're gonna have a conversation. We're gonna talk about how you're doing, we're gonna talk about your performance thus far. The employee just feels a lot more comfortable when you take that term, performance review, out of the conversation. Real quickly, RSD, that's a role and success dialogue, which is really the performance review. But what we really do is make sure the employee has skin in the game. We sit down and say, hey, what was the things that you were most proud about that you accomplished in 2015? What were the obstacles that were the most challenging to you in 2015? We align around those things. And then the third question is, what do you feel you want to accomplish in 2016? So we really put the onus on the employee to initiate this, but it is manager and employee supported. Second one is individual development plan. This is more of a career document for people. We want to put in a succession plan that we want to grow and develop. Maybe they want to get an MBA. We want to support that. We want to put them in higher levels of responsibility. So everyone does not do an IDP. Those are for our employees that we see who are going to be eventual leaders in key roles. PIP, I literally tell employees that you don't want a PIP. If you have to do a PIP, there's definitely a problem. That's a performance improvement plan. And just so you know, people that we put on performance improvement plans are still people we care about. We've made an investment in these people. It costs me more money to go out and hire a new employee than it does to get this old employee, well, I shouldn't say that being an HR, this more senior employee up to speed. We want to take that time to invest to keep that employee. That fits with our life cycle, that development, that leveraging our investment and getting that return. We've made a big investment when we hired you. We don't want to fire you. And then we put together something called Empower You. I used to be at GE, so I stole this from GE. GE has this place called Programville. They send everybody there for all these nice classes. Fairmount Santrol doesn't have the GE money, but we created a program called Empower You, where we have online courses that employees can take. We have subject matter experts in our organization that teach classes on tracking, on selling. Our finance people teach financial classes. HR teaches classes on how to document properly, those kinds of things. We have subject matter experts in the company so we can teach these things. Then, from a promotion standpoint, we have talent identification process. I used to work at Pepsi, so I stole that too. Pepsi. And this is what you do. You take best practices from one organization and you take them to another. So we do what we call a TIP, talent identification process. Every individual, first of all, everybody is reviewed, but not everybody necessarily is talked about in the talent review process. Talent review process is really keeping us cutting edge to find out where we have our key strong players that we want to promote, that we want to move, that we want to do something with. One of the things I implemented there is called a mid-year calibration. And we implemented that because you don't want to get to the end of the year and find out that the goals you set at the beginning of the year are misaligned with what you and your manager thought. So this is another opportunity for the employee and manager to align so that employee can be as successful as possible. I won't go through all of these, but you see them there. I ran through that pretty quickly because I wanted to leave some time for questions. But at the end of the day, Fairmount Santrol, I don't know if you noticed it on each one of my slides, we have a motto, is do good, do well. We believe in that motto. We also have what we call a appreciative culture. Anyone who's familiar with AI, that is part of our culture. We look for the positives and what can be accomplished versus, you know what, that's just too big. We can't get that done. Or, you know, Reggie is really, really terrible. We don't talk in negative terms. I'm serious. We talk very positively in the organization. That actually drives retention. People want to be in a positive culture. It doesn't cost money. It really causes the organizations to shift their thinking in the way they communicate. And then a couple other things, we do volunteerism. 40 years of, excuse me, not 40 years, 40 hours of paid volunteerism for every employee to do whatever they want to do, the company pays for it. So if you want to go out take 40 hours to invest in something in the community, the company will give you that time off, and we'll pay for that. Obviously, tuition reimbursement, and then we also are big on volunteering in our organization. People like working for organizations that do those kinds of things. Those are things that cost us money, but don't necessarily cost us money because you go out, volunteer in the community, build a playground, build a house, Habitat for Humanity. These kinds of things are things we think really drives employee retention.